Welcome back. The indictment of President Donald Trump is stirring strong passions, both among his supporters and his critics.
Of course, passion is one thing. Violence is a very different thing. And New York City police are gearing up for the possibility, of course, that protests may get out of hand. This is a post-insurrection country now. We've seen how bad things can be. Every member of the NYPD has been ordered to report for duty. That means 36,000 uniformed officers and another 19,000 civilian employees will be available. Again, this is the biggest PD in America. Law enforcement experts say the Big Apple is well equipped, of course, as the country's biggest city to handle whatever may come.
Really have to consider is that the NYPD, for the NYPD to handle this, it's really not handled any different than any other large-scale event, such as New Year's Eve or the Puerto Rican Day Parade or any other protest. So there will be a command structure where an incident commander will be named by the police commissioner, and that incident commander will work in a command post.
And just to be clear, we have not seen any significant protests since all of this indictment news began to break in the last several days, either there, Trump Tower in New York, or at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Well, Dermot Groome knows the inner workings of the Manhattan DA's office, having served as a prosecutor there. He's presented, in fact, more than 100 cases to a grand jury. Dermot, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate your time and your expertise to walk us through the legal weeds of all of this a little bit. Good morning to you.
Sure. And good morning, Rob. Good morning, Lindsay. I also am one of the few people that led the investigation and indictment of a sitting president, Slobodan Milosevic. So I have some sense of what Bragg is thinking and his calculations before issuing this indictment.
Well, that seems like a good place to start, because for everything this indictment has and will continue to stir up, and the risk that he's taking by doing this, you have to make a certain assumption that he thinks he has a pretty strong case here, because it's some big dice to roll if you don't. Take us inside his mind right now and what you think it says about the strength of the case that he's willing to take this big, volatile gamble.
So having spent 6 years in the Manhattan DA's office and having indicted a president, I can only imagine that this has been the most rigorous, thoughtful process possible. Bragg is, I'm sure, is ready for trial. I'm sure he's chased down every lead, has gathered all of the evidence. I'm sure he appreciates that Michael Cohen is a difficult witness, has credibility problems. But we solve that as prosecutors by assembling as much evidence as we can to corroborate whatever the witness is giving as evidence.
So let's talk a little bit about the process that we've been through over the past week. We thought, well, Trump said himself that he was going to be arrested last week. That didn't happen. And then we heard from the grand jury that it would be postponed potentially till the end of April, any announcement. That didn't happen. Walk us through what likely did happen. Were more witnesses came forward? Was more evidence available that all of a sudden made this decision easier to come to?
So in my experience, the grand jurors take an oath and they take their responsibilities very seriously. They also have the authority to call witnesses before them. So everyone is assuming that Bragg is making these decisions about who to put before them, but they too have the ability to call witnesses. So it's quite possible that they wanted to call additional witnesses or call witnesses back to satisfy themselves that they had sufficient information before they took a vote and made the very significant decision to indict President Trump.
The other point that we've been stressing on the show today as well is that once we get past, we obviously had the big news yesterday. Tuesday's going to be another big day. It's going to get a lot of coverage and a lot of time. But then kind of this case goes into what some legal analysts have called hibernation. This is just the start of what could be at least a year, if not more, before trial, if it even gets that far. So it's a big story now, it's hot now, but eventually this will get back to the slow-moving tedium that court proceedings usually are known for, right?
Well, with all due respect, Rod, it doesn't have to be. I mean, the timing of it is largely in Trump's hands at this moment. He has 45 days after he's arraigned to file his motions. They'll be decided, I would imagine, expeditiously by a judge. He's been saying that this is a fake case and a fake indictment. He has the option to walk into court during his arraignment and say, I'm ready for trial. Let's see the evidence. Let's put Bragg to the test and have him put the witnesses on the stand and show the documentary evidence. So it really could be decided. The public could learn the truth of what's behind this case in the near term. But of course, Trump will be advised by lawyers, and they may advise him to exploit every conceivable issue that he can to raise it with the court and possibly appeal it. And in that case, then we will have a very prolonged proceedings.
Well, yeah, so Trump has been facing investigations since the 1970s and has always found a way to evade being even physically present in court. What kind of motions do you anticipate to see from the president's legal team?
Well, I think the most significant one, I mean, he's claiming that this is fake and it's unjust. There's a motion where he can move to dismiss that indictment in the interest of justice. And some of the factors that he can allege are roughly aligned with the arguments he's making. So he can do that. He can do that at his arraignment. He would have a limited time to present those arguments. Bragg would be able to respond, and a judge will decide it. So he can do that. He can also file a motion to have the grand jury proceedings reviewed for procedural sufficiency and for substantive sufficiency, and to make sure that the evidence that the grand jury heard is sufficient for an indictment, that there is reasonable cause, probable cause, to allege that he has committed these crimes.
We've already seen great erosion in people's trust in our elections, in our election system in this country. And now that the common refrain is that this is a political prosecution or a political persecution, what do you think that does to the confidence in our legal system as well, particularly considering what you do for a living, sir?
So I don't think it does. I think it would take me longer than we have to explain why I don't think it's a political decision. I will say this.
But the idea it's out there that this is political in terms of the public reaction to that, potentially hurting confidence in the legal system. Do you have concerns about that?
I do not. I mean, if they believe that Bragg has acted for political reasons, there's oversight of his office and whether he abuses his discretion. So they can file a complaint with the New York Bar, and that will be investigated. So we do have mechanisms for checking prosecutors that might act for political reasons. I don't see strong evidence of that in this case.
All right, Dermot Groome, former prosecutor at the Manhattan DA's office. Please come back. Appreciate and need your insight as we get through this interesting time together. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.